Welcome to our /malicious compliance war op. He gets his horrible teacher fired. Our next Reddit post is from Heavy. This happened in my junior year of high school. The district had just built the third high school in our city. And most of the teachers were new. The band director was one of these new hires. He was qualified for the job, but had zero people skills and was extremely abrasive towards students. He had previously taught university, and he could not wrap his head around the fact that high school students are not college-level music majors who live in practice rooms and write symphonies in their sleep. His normal behavior consisted of berating students for not knowing university-level curriculum, talking down to everyone about how he can't understand why we're so incompetent, and stopping rehearsals to go on long tangents about things that had nothing to do with music. Every day, at least 2 to 3 students would leave the class in tears. We complained to the higher UPS, and they repeatedly brushed us off. He made students hate attending his music class, and many dropped band and orchestra as a result. One of the classes he taught was supposed to be entered to music theory. For those who don't know, this would be a class that would typically teach things like different types of chords, the definition of music symbols, the logic behind key changes, etc. At the first class of the year, there were about 25 kids enrolled. On the first day, he handed us a quiz because he wanted to see how much we knew. I think there were maybe 3 to 5 kids who were able to attempt even a single question on the quiz. No one got a single answer correct. That's how advanced it was. Imagine signing up for what you think is basic math and walking into advanced calculus. The teacher spent the entire class berating us for not being prepared. We told him this is an intro class. None of us have learned anything like this before. And his response was, "Really? I thought this was an advanced class." The next period, there were maybe 15 kids enrolled. He did the same thing, ask us to perform something that we can't even understand, and then berate us for not being prepared. At every class he would say, "I thought you all were musicians. This is supposed to be an advanced class." By the end of the second week, there were 6 students left enrolled in this class. Including myself, he softened up slightly to those of us who stayed, and seemed to think that we were his prize students, and that this was his class of elites. Think Professor Slughorn from Harry Potter. In truth, we all thought that he was insane and cruel. But the 6 of us had sufficient music background and experience to understand a fraction of his lessons. Without a bell curve, we all would have failed as class. A few months go by, and we were at the end of the first semester. By now, every student connected to music in this school hated this guy, and repeated complaints had done nothing to fix the problem. The administrators filed away every complaint, but never did anything more than remind him that he's supposed to be more kind to students. He changed nothing and still berated students and made them cry. So when it comes to the final exam for his theory class, he decides that he wants to give it to us early, so that on the day the final is supposed to be scheduled, we can have a class party instead of the 6 of us left. 4 of us have the same period after his class together as well. That class was AP English, and we were prepping for the AP test. We had no problem having a class party in music right before the AP prep exam, so we didn't complain. The day of our music final exam comes, and after we finish the test, he tells us that for our class party, he wants to take us all to a breakfast at a new IHOP that opened 20 minutes away. His class was during first period. For context, we tried to tell him the issue with this plan. We aren't allowed to leave campus without permission slip. Also, we wouldn't get back in time for second period, which is our final exam also. He doesn't have permission to remove us from the campus. What if there's an emergency and we're unaccounted for because we aren't even at the school? His solution was to tell us that after the start of the class, on our final day, he would be going to IHOP, and if we wanted to join them, that was our choice, but if we didn't, we would have to stay in the classroom and not bring attention to the next, that there was no class and no teacher. Without talking about this to each other, the 6 of us students saw an opportunity to finally get the admin's attention to the complete disregard this teacher had for our rules and policies. We made sure to inform our English teacher that we might be late to class on the day of the final due to a class field trip for music theory. She was irritated and reminded us that this final was very important and that she would not give us extra time if we came in late. We told her that we understood, and we gave her details about where we would be and what we'd be doing and who we'd be with. She said she still expected us in her class on the day of the final. We all went to IHOP. It took forever to get there because of construction, and forever to get our food because the restaurant was newly opened and had a huge number of customers. We got back to school halfway through our second period class. The admins were there waiting for us. Security was waiting for us. My English teacher had called the front office to complain that 4 of her best students were missing, and that she was fairly certain that we weren't even on campus. The admins had checked attendance and seen that we were all marked present that morning, and they had searched the entire school looking for our class. The 4 of us walked into our English final to a livid teacher. We knew that she was pissed at us, but couldn't punish us beyond saying that. We had the same remaining time as the rest of the class. Since we've been with a teacher in our absence, none of us did as well in the final as we could have. Because we didn't have the full 87 minutes. But we were doing well enough in the class already that the lesser marks didn't affect our overall grade too much. The band teacher had a private reprimand that was so loud, the entire school could hear it. He was confused as to why the administration was upset that he took minor children off campus without permission or notice. Without proper school transportation or even a good reason, he kept his usual attitude, but this time directed it towards the admins. Why are you guys so incompetent about this? They're old enough to drive. What's the problem? My English teacher absolutely went mama bear on the administration, demanding to know how they could continue to employ someone who disrespects the other teachers, so much as to deprive his students other final exams, and put them in potentially dangerous circumstances. He told us to drive ourselves to the restaurant, and any accidents or medical issues would have been the school's fault. He was fired later that day. Many of the students had a gleeful but confused reaction. Since the 6 of us weren't talking to anyone about it, all people knew was that this tyrant of a teacher was gone. We didn't spread the story very much of how it happened because we still feared being reprimanded for our involvement, since he technically gave us a choice to go with them or stay. But I always smiled when people gossiped about what the final straw was. They got them fired beneath that. We have a similar story. I want the last slice when I was a sophomore in high school. I had an English teacher who was just like this guy. It was nothing as dramatic as Ob's story, but he definitely acted like he was teaching at advanced literature at Harvard class instead of an intro class. One specific funny thing I do remember, we were reading sections of some book out loud, and he criticized one student for clearly saying the word forehead, as in a person's forehead. He insisted it was pronounced forward. Even after the entire class argued with him, he wouldn't give in and was visibly annoyed by the end of the class. A few weeks later, he finished yelling at the class about something, and it's really quiet. When he turns his back on the class, someone quietly but very clearly says forehead. The whole class cracked up and he turned red with anger. I think he only lasted a few years. Our next Reddit post is from Social Unavailable. For context, I have an extremely bad peanut and tree nut allergy. If I eat or touch peanuts or nuts, I can go into anaphylactic shock, meaning my throat closes up and basically I'll choke to death. I carry an EpiPen with me at all times. Because of this additional information, my teacher hated children. Like the type of teacher who yells at kids if they get an answer wrong. I'll call this teacher Miss Idiots. I was in 1st grade, and by this time, I had a good grasp of how bad my peanut and nut allergy was. I always read labels, and I never ate other people's home-cooked meals. And I knew that I shouldn't trust someone just because they say, I don't think it has nuts in it. It was 1st grade, and I was having fun coloring something on paper, waiting for my teacher as I was finishing drawing. My teacher got out a fun activity worksheet involving candy. If I remember correctly, it involved counting or something math-related. As she was passing out the worksheets and candy, I noticed that they were M&Ms, which I'm allergic to our interaction when something like this misses. Idiot, I can't have these because I'm allergic. They're original M&Ms. They don't have peanuts in them. But my mom says I'm allergic to the originals too. They're fine, you can have them. To this day, I don't know why a teacher would ever tell a kid with allergies to eat something the kid thinks or knows they're allergic to. Also, while original M&Ms don't have peanuts or nuts directly in them, they're made on the same equipment as peanut M&Ms. This exchange went on for a while, with the idiotic teacher telling me they're fine and me saying they're not, I think. The teacher actually believed that I was purposely trying to annoy her. She said, "If you don't start behaving, I'm going to call your mother and you'll be in big trouble." Younger me realized that my mom was just going to say the same thing. But instead of telling her that, I sat there and smiled at the teacher and said, "Okay, call her." I remember wondering why the teacher just didn't believe me. Looking back, that teacher definitely hated being told that she was wrong, especially by a first grader. Mrs. Idiot looked annoyed but smug, I guess thinking that my mom would yell at me for not wanting to die or have a giant needle put in my thigh and then being rushed to the hospital. Now, I don't know the full exchange between my mom and Mrs. Idiot because this was so long ago and my mom doesn't remember exactly what was said, just that she was extremely angry. I do know that my mom tore into that teacher because me and everyone else who was present in class could hear my mom yelling through the phone. I think for the first time ever, I saw my idiotic teacher actually nervous. After my mom tore the teacher a new one, the teacher brought me into the corner of the room and handed me a bag of Skittles, which she apparently had the entire time. It sucked being alone for the activity, but I happily did the assignment, eating my packet of Skittles, knowing fully well that my teacher was simmering at her desk, annoyed that a 7-year-old knew better than she did. Later, it was revealed that my mom sent an email to the school's principal, which luckily for the idiotic teacher's case, was my mom's second draft and had nicer words in it. The teacher had to take a refresher course on allergies. Given by the nurse, I guess my school was desperate for teachers because she continued to teach at that school, even though she had other incidents. As much as I'd like to say that I ate M's and watched as her career tanked, I did not, in the wise words of Sid the Sloth. No thanks, I choose life, man. How dumb do you have to have a first grader have better sense and intelligence than you? Our next Reddit post is from Pine-Scented Surat. I was tiered to tech support for a company that handles my country's largest internet provider entire professional email services, as well as a couple of other services. Our company is tiny, not even a blip on the radar, but it has power that I'll likely never again hold at my fingertips. One day a ticket comes in from the internet service provider. The big client company is moving away from our proprietary email services and into Microsoft 365 or some such equivalent exchange. This usually meant that I got to help the client through the process of changing DNS records, migrating inboxes, or just backing up emails, and even actually setting up some of the stuff on the Microsoft side. The customer says the client is moving from Service X to Service Y. Please remove their subscription from the database. I said there seems to be some sort of mistake. We only removed their subscription once. The new service is up and running. Otherwise, this will delete everything in your subscribe package, including all email storage, DNS records, and their website. You'll likely want to change their subscription to not email services, but keep the rest. Since your Microsoft subscription doesn't include DNS and web management hosting, and even then, you'd only want to change that after you set up your new email service. Yeah, whatever. Just remove their subscription. Are you absolutely sure this process is not recoverable? All their emails, DNS records, and entire website, including their database, will be permanently deleted. The request has been submitted, so remove the subscription. At this point, it's been a couple of days since the first ticket. I call my boss over and tell them what they're asking me to do. My boss says, "All right, let's show them why they pay us because we know things that they don't. Do not delete the subscription, but suspend all the services that would be affected. Keep those tickets at hand and expect a phone call. If they call you, tell them to talk to me." God, that felt good. I mean, I did feel bad for the client, because their entire company basically shut down for an afternoon. But when they called my work phone directly, and the nice lady asked me what had happened in that tone that says, "I'm doing my best to hear all sides before making a decision, but I'm freaking the hell out right now," and I directed her to the tickets, where I very clearly stated what would happen if I did what she told me to and then told her to call my boss. I felt so vindicated. My boss later told me to let them sweat for a couple of hours because the process should have been unrecoverable and then turn the services back on. The client was yet again absolutely thrilled with us. And my name kept coming up more often as the person who solves things. Our next Reddit post is from Kilogram. I worked in a factory years ago that had what we called the Wall of Shame and had pictures taken by a professional photographer of all the office and floor personnel. As you would expect, the floor personnel were all in dirty factory clothes, while the office people were in dress attire. This was done when the plant opened, and the new hires were sent to the photographer's studio for their picture. At the end of their first year, I worked third shift, and I was told that I and another coworker had to go after our shift to get our pictures taken. We tried to get out of it, but we were told in no uncertain terms that we had to go. Cue our seemingly harmless malicious compliance. The coworker I went with was a drinking buddy. I told him at the bar the day before to bring a shirt and a tie. He asked why, and I told him it would upset the plant manager. So he was in the next morning. We went to the studio and the photographer gave us a puzzled look. He said that he thought that he had to floor workers schedule, not office workers. For those who don't know, floor workers at most factories are considered extremely stupid. Trained monkey's eye innocently said that we didn't know that we couldn't look nice for our pictures. He dubiously took our pictures and sent us on our way the fallout. About a month later, my coworker and I were called into the plant manager's office to explain our pictures. He was ready to explode. But I again explained that we just wanted to look nice because our pictures were being professionally taken. He turned a deep shade of red when I added that I didn't know it was against the rules for floor workers to dress up for their pictures. He dismissed us while trying not to flip out on us. My friends and I barely held our laughter as he slammed the door behind us. It gave me great amusement to look at those pictures until they closed the plant down. That was our /malicious compliance. And if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.